I begged Julian Croft for 3 years before he finally agreed to marry me. Just after I shared the news with my mother, Julian suddenly vanished without a trace. The princess wedding dress my mother had chosen for me also disappeared. In the end, my mother passed away without ever seeing me wear it. After the funeral, Julian and his assistant announced their engagement with a wedding photo on their social media feeds. For the rest of my life, I'll be with you. Seeing the wedding dress I had waited 3 years for being worn by someone else. In that moment, I suddenly felt weary. The funeral was over. I returned home holding my mother's ashes. Julian Croft, who had been missing for 3 months, was sitting calmly on the sofa, offering no explanation. Normally, I might have cried and thrown a tantrum, but at this moment, I was too exhausted to speak. I had just lain down on the bed when the door was slammed open. Julian stood there, his tone sharp and questioning. "Arya, who are you putting on that long face for the moment you get home? I was gone for 3 months, and you don't even ask where I went?" I caught a glimpse of the lipstick stain on his suit, and a sharp pain pierced my heart. "Weren't you on vacation with Serena?" Julian looked surprised, as if wondering how I knew. My expression was cold. "Maybe next time you block me, you should try blocking our mutual friends too." Julian's brow furrowed. "Is that what you're angry about? Serena and I are just friends. Stop letting your imagination run wild." I smiled bitterly. He was still treating me like a fool. "I didn't know friends take wedding photos together. That was just a joke." I could no longer contain the stinging pain in my heart. I yelled at him. "That was the wedding dress I waited 3 years for." Julian's face froze. He threw out a "you're insane" before fleeing in a panic. Lying down again, I pulled up the wedding photo once more. In the picture, Serena Vance wore the wedding dress, hugging Julian intimately, looking as happy as a princess. Tears welled up in my eyes. It was the dress I had chosen long ago, its grand skirt covered in delicate glitter. My mother used to say it was a princess's gown. Unfortunately, I had waited for 3 years, but the princess wasn't me. In the comments, everyone was saying they were a match made in heaven, but I was Julian's actual girlfriend. My finger kept scrolling. It was Serena's latest post. "Love is sharing the last piece of a sausage." In the picture, the man and woman looked intimate, their expressions ambiguous. I stared at that half-eaten sausage and my thoughts swirled. After I got together with Julian, he always looked down on me for eating street food. "That's disgusting. How can you even put that kind of low-class food in your mouth?" He would wave his hand in disgust, shooing me out of the house as if I were a fly. I used to think he just looked down on the food. Now I realize Julian just looked down on me. At that realization, tears streamed down my face. After all these years, I had never noticed. Was his acting that good? Or had I been playing deaf and dumb all along? I woke up the next morning. I hadn't slept well for days while searching for Julian. Then I had to handle my mother's funeral all by myself, which left me even more drained. It wasn't just this period. I rarely got much sleep. Julian was not only a picky eater, but also a neat freak. Every morning, I had to be up at 6 to finish the cleaning and ironing. At the same time, I had to rack my brain to make a nutritionally balanced breakfast. Yet despite all this, I never received a single word of praise. Instead, the takeout Serena ordered became his favorite. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I had just walked out of the bedroom when Julian's impatient voice echoed from the living room. "You're finally awake, sleeping like a log. Hurry up and eat. This is your breakfast." Though his tone was harsh, this was his way of making a peace offering. A stick, then a carrot. It was his usual style. The 3 months of silence were punishment for me pressuring him into marriage. The breakfast was the apology and peace offering after the punishment. The old me might have been overjoyed, but now my heart felt nothing. I calmly walked to the dining table and glanced at the so-called breakfast. A bitter smile formed on my lips. This breakfast shop was famous. Their shrimp dumplings were never sold separately. They were always part of a set meal. And Julian's assistant, Serena, was allergic to shrimp, but particularly loved this shop's set A. The truth was crystal clear. Julian had been shuttling between the homes of two women since early this morning. He must be exhausted. Seeing me hesitate to sit and eat, Julian's face darkened and his tone instantly turned icy. Arya, I woke up early specifically to buy you breakfast to apologize. Why are you still not satisfied? How long are you going to keep this up? I'm allergic to seafood. Julian froze, speechless for a long moment. Seeing him like this, my eyes began to sting. At the same time, it was somewhat laughable. We had been in love for 8 years, and he didn't know I was allergic to seafood. Serena had known him for 3 months, yet he knew everything about her. Perhaps feeling guilty, Julian offered to drive me to work. As I opened the car door, my fingers froze instantly. Through the crack, I saw a pair of black stockings and underwear. Wait a second. Julian called out sharply, his expression tense. I swallowed the lump in my throat and closed the car door, pretending nothing had happened. Seeing the door shut, he breathed a sigh of relief and then directed me to the back seat. You sit in the back. The front is inconvenient. I obediently moved to the back, but my fingertips were still ice cold. I closed my eyes, but the images of that intimate mess refused to fade from my mind. Seeing that I remained silent, Julian finally lost his patience and spoke again. Don't let your imagination run wild. Serena just got drunk. Nothing happened between us. Hearing this, a bitter taste filled my mouth. What a flimsy excuse. If nothing had happened, why would her underwear be left behind? A strange exhaustion washed over me. I didn't want to hear his explanations anymore. I cut him off. Just drive. I'm going to be late. At my urging, Julian had no choice but to shut his mouth. The car was quiet. I closed my eyes and dozed off. Even so, I could feel a burning gaze from the driver's seat. It was incredibly annoying. Julian was a good driver, fast and steady. Just as I thought we would reach the office soon, my phone rang. The car screeched to a halt and I was thrown violently to the side, hitting my head. Blood streamed down my face. But Julian didn't even look up. He was fixated on his phone. In a daze, I saw the name on the screen. My little piggy. It was a message from Serena. The next moment, Julian's voice came. I have something to take care of. You can go on your own. With that, he left me stranded in the middle of the road and drove off against the traffic. I stood weakly in the flow of cars. I helplessly pressed my hand to my forehead, but the blood continued to drip through my fingers. Cars sped past me on all sides. My ears were filled with curses and honks of drivers. An immense sense of absurdity washed over me. The man I loved most had with his own hands pushed me to the brink of death over a single message from Serena. One wrong step now, and I would be crushed to bloody pulp by these vehicles. Tears mixed with blood streamed down my face. I stood in the middle of the traffic, my body trembling uncontrollably. In the end, my blood-soaked appearance must have been too frightening. A kind person called the police, who took me to the hospital. I was about to pay the bill when a familiar voice came. Feeling better from your cold. I told you not to get chilled, my little piggy. I turned around in disbelief. I saw Julian affectionately pinching Serena's cheek, his eyes full of tenderness. I was less than a meter away from him, but he seemed not to see me at all. His eyes and heart were only for Serena. That sense of absurdity engulfed me again. Bitterness mixed with sorrow and pain rooted me to the spot. The wound on my forehead throbbed intensely, yet my mind was clearer than ever.
As if having an out-of-body experience, I silently listened to their sweet nothings and completed all the paperwork on my own. As if nothing had happened, I calmly returned to the office. As soon as I reached the ground floor, I overheard my colleagues whispering. I heard Mr. Kraft and his little assistant took wedding photos. I thought Arya would end up with him. Who would have thought? After 8 years of dating, the other woman came out on top. Haven't you heard the saying, in love, the one who isn't cared about is the third wheel? In that instant, my consciousness finally returned. My mind felt like it exploded, suddenly crystal clear. So in this game of love, I had lost completely from the very beginning. My 8 years of devotion meant nothing.
The moment this thought surfaced, I felt as if all my strength had been drained and my vision went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Due to the severity of my injury, the doctor advised me to stay for a few days of observation. It would be best to have your boyfriend take care of you. Your wound is still quite inconvenient at the moment. Faced with the doctor's suggestion, I was silent for a long time. Tears slowly fell as I said in a trembling voice, "I don't have a boyfriend." In the end, I hired a caregiver to look after me for those few days. During this time, Julian was also at the hospital, except he was keeping Serena company. Serena's social media posts clearly documented Julian's meticulous care for her. Got a cold, a certain big dummy has been by my side taking care of me. So touched. IV drips hurt, but with someone here with me, it doesn't hurt at all. The porridge the big dummy made smells so good. How can there be such a perfect man in the world? Although his face wasn't shown, you could still see from the pictures how carefully the man was feeding her porridge. The caregiver beside me happened to see the picture. What a loving couple. At her words, my heart trembled for a moment. With a hint of bitterness, I nodded in agreement. Yes, very loving. After a few days of rest, I finally returned home. I turned on the lights. The dumplings on the table had grown moldy. It seemed Julian hadn't been back at all. At 11 o'clock at night, there was a sound at the door. Julian was back. "Arya, why is the floor so dirty?" Just as Julian was about to lose his temper, his eyes fell on the gauze on my forehead. "What happened to your head?" I bumped it. Seeing my reluctance to elaborate, Julian frowned. Then he sneered with a cold face. "Take tomorrow off and rest at home. Get better before you do anything else. You even managed to get hurt at work. What a blockhead." In his eyes, I couldn't seem to do anything right. Every time something happened, Julian would indiscriminately call me a blockhead. If I didn't cook a meal to his liking, I was a blockhead. If I didn't buy clothes that satisfied him, I was a blockhead. Even if there was a single strand of hair on the floor, it was because the blockhead didn't notice it in time. But in contrast, there was Serena. She was clumsy and unreliable at everything. Yet Julian would hold her tenderly in his arms, calling her his little piggy. Thinking of this, I lowered my eyes and smiled bitterly. How had I never noticed Julian's blatant double standards before? Seeing that I didn't answer, Julian frowned and demanded, "What are you smiling about?" I looked up and met his gaze seriously. "Do you really think I bumped my head at the office? When I got out of the car, did you truly not see the blood on my forehead?" These light words made Julian's face change. The air instantly tensed. Julian's mouth opened and closed, his eyes filled with panic. He seemed at loss for how to explain. Just as he was about to step forward to examine my wound, he saw me instinctively turn my head away. Julian's face darkened. "Are you blaming me?" "No." Seeing my calmness, Julian, who had been feeling a little ashamed, instantly became annoyed. "You clearly are blaming me. Arya, you were careless when you got out of the car. What right do you have to blame me? You really are a blockhead." Then he slammed the door and left. His hurried footsteps carried a hint of guilt. For the next month, Julian didn't come home. But Julian, who never posted on social media, began updating his status every day,
and each update was accompanied by his real-time location. I knew he was waiting for me to back down. Even though the whole thing was his fault, Julian still wanted me to be the one to yield. This wasn't the first or second time. Over the past 3 years, I had compromised too many times. But this time, I was unwilling to back down. Right now, I was up for a promotion. Over the years, I had given up countless opportunities for advancement. My friends and superiors had hinted and openly encouraged me many times, but I had always refused. All because Julian's work was too demanding and he needed someone to take care of him. I have to say, the old me was a fool. To give up my future for someone who didn't care about me was truly not worth it. Perhaps seeing that I wasn't backing down, Julian grew anxious. Out of the blue, he sent me a message. 5 o'clock this afternoon, bring a pot of chicken soup to my office. This demanding tone was his way of softening. Faced with this gesture, I felt no joy, only a sense of sorrow. Julian and I had been in love for 8 years, yet our interactions were like that of a boss and a subordinate. What was even more laughable was that Julian had remembered the promise about the chicken soup. Once, when he was sick, I had personally made him chicken soup to take care of him. He was overjoyed and made me promise. You can only make chicken soup for me. You can never let a second person drink it. Later, the chicken soup became a tool for us to smooth things over. At that time, I firmly believed that as long as I kept my promise, our love would last forever. But in the very first week Julian met Serena, he threw that promise to the wind. At the time, I consoled myself thinking perhaps Julian had forgotten the promise. But now it seemed Julian simply didn't care. They were just sweet nothings whispered in a moment of passion. How can they be taken seriously? Only I had foolishly held on to that promise for 8 years, like a joke. Tears fell from the corners of my eyes, and the last of my hesitation crumbled. I took a deep breath and ordered a pot of chicken soup. Then I rearranged my clothes, preparing for the end of this 8-year love story.
At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I arrived at his office door on time. Before I could push it open, I heard a woman's coquettish laughter from inside. "Stop messing around. Arya will be here soon." "So what if she comes? Can she boss you around? I'm your boss, my little piggy." I reached for the door, then pulled my hand back, and then knocked calmly. It instantly fell silent inside. A flurry of hurried footsteps followed. The door was pushed open, and the man's eyes were filled with displeasure. A barrage of questions immediately followed. "When did you get here? Don't you know I'm usually busy? Why didn't you let me know in advance? What if you interrupted me while I was talking to a client?" I glanced at the somewhat disheveled man and woman and said nothing. I just calmly handed him the chicken soup. My gaze made Julian a little guilty. He was about to say more, but Serena cut him off. Like the lady of the house, Serena took the chicken soup from him and said softly, "Thank you, Arya. Your soup-making skills are amazing. Unlike me, I can't do anything right. Julian always calls me a little piggy." She linked her arm with Julian's and winked at me, looking incredibly smug. This kind of scene had become common since Serena appeared. She was constantly flaunting Julian's special treatment of her, mocking my embarrassment. I had cried and fought over it before, but Julian always dismissed it as me being unreasonable. Now that Serena was using the same trick again, I lowered my head and pretended not to see anything. Serena was dissatisfied with my attitude and pouted. "Arya, why aren't you answering me? Are you still angry about the wedding photo incident?" Seeing Serena on the verge of tears, Julian immediately raised his eyebrows, his tone sharp. "Arya, have you had enough? It's just a wedding dress. Do you have to be so dramatic? The reason I was unwilling to marry you before was because I couldn't stand your petty attitude." Over the years, Julian had always, intentionally or unintentionally, criticized me from appearance to clothing. All my defenses and arguments were seen by him as being petty. Because of this, I had always felt very insecure. But when I finally woke up, I realized it was just his excuse. He doesn't care about you, so everything you do is wrong. I silently lowered my head and didn't answer. Seeing this, Julian became even angrier. He roared at me, "Aria, if you're gonna keep this up, there's no need for us to get married." He always used marriage as a threat against me. Because of this, I had begged him countless times. But now there was no need to bow my head anymore. I took a deep breath, my tone calm. "Then, let's not get married. There's no point anyway." The atmosphere in the office instantly froze. Julian stood there, stunned. The hand holding Serena's loosened. His face was grim. "What kind of tantrum are you throwing now? If your head's not clear, go see a doctor. Don't make a scene here. Do you think you can threaten me with this?" I looked up, meeting Julian's gaze without flinching. My cold attitude said it all. Julian clenched his fists, glaring at me through gritted teeth. "Don't you forget, you were the one who knelt and begged me to marry you." Serena also chimed in, tears in her eyes that were truly heart-wrenching. "Aria, I was wrong. I shouldn't have secretly worn your wedding dress. Please don't fight with Julian, okay?" Her tear-streaked face made me frown, but Julian quickly pulled her into his arms, comforting her in a low voice. Then he directed his anger back at me. "It was just an ordinary wedding dress. I can just give it back to you. Why do you have to make things so difficult for Serena?" Even now, Julian still thought I was angry about the wedding dress. A sour feeling rose in my nose, and the grievance in my heart felt like it was about to erupt. Unwilling to show weakness at this moment, I said coldly, "I'm not a second-hand recycling station. I don't like wearing wedding dresses that others have worn, and I don't like fighting over trash with others." The harsh words left Julian stunned. It was the first time he had ever seen my expression so cold, and he didn't react for a moment. When he finally came to his senses, I spoke first, again. "My mother is dead. There's no need for us to get married anymore." Admitting this fact again, my heart still couldn't help but sting. I held myself together, not letting the tears fall, and finally said what I needed to say. On the way here, I had imagined how difficult and painful it would be to say these words many times. But when I took a deep breath and opened my mouth, I finally realized letting go was so simple. Unlike my relieved expression, the air was now so tense it felt like it would explode. Julian was stunned for a moment, then his eyes widened in a furious glare. The usually calm man was now extremely angry and flustered. He couldn't believe I had initiated this request. Julian suppressed the strange anger in his heart and quickly explained, "Aria, I had no idea about your aunt's death. This is my fault." This was the first time in all these years he had apologized to me. But at this moment, I didn't want to hear another word from him. I just felt so annoyed. A late apology was useless. After all, my mother was already gone. She couldn't hear anything anymore. "Enough!" I cut him off. "Let's break up."
As soon as these words were spoken, Julian's face instantly turned pale. He subconsciously took a few steps back, looking at me in disbelief. I turned my head and looked at Serena. My tone was icy. "That wedding dress was ordered for me by my mother. It's a memento from my mother. You'd better return it as soon as possible." At these words, Serena's face twisted. Her originally shy expression instantly turned to horror. She frantically patted her arms as if she had been touched by something unlucky. But Julian, on the side, seemed to have finally come to his senses. He grabbed my hand and said with forced composure, "I know you're upset about your aunt's passing, but can you calm down? Is breaking up something you can just say casually? And I had no idea about your aunt's death. If you had told me sooner." I never knew Julian could be so thick-skinned. Even at a time like this, he still wanted to blame me. I forcefully pulled my hand away and said sarcastically, "Didn't I send you a message? Or were you and Serena having too much fun to see it?" Instantly, Julian's face turned another shade paler. He guiltily avoided my eyes and began to argue. "If you hadn't been so pushy, would I have disappeared for 3 months?" Suddenly, he seemed to have finally come to his senses. He shouted righteously, "Aria, you have no right to break up with me. Have you forgotten what you did?" Anger raged like a torrent of fire. I finally lost control of my emotions. My eyes turned red and tears streamed down my face. "Julian Croft, what right do you have to blame me for your mother's death? Did you think I would never find out the truth?" Julian was completely stunned. "No, how could you know?" He was instantly crestfallen, stumbling backwards. I forced back the tears at the corners of my eyes, and my thoughts began to churn. My love for Julian began with love at first sight. After just one meeting, I began to pursue him relentlessly. He came from a wealthy family, while I was from a single-parent home. He was an excellent student, while I was mediocre. Despite this, we fell in love. We became the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. Although we had already decided to spend our lives together, Julian's mother had always been disapproving. This led to a huge fight between Julian and his mother. From then on, the two began to drift apart. Unwilling to see them estranged, I secretly arranged to meet with Julian's mother. At my repeated request, his mother finally agreed to attend his graduation ceremony. And on the day of his graduation, an accident happened. Julian's mother was killed in a car accident on her way there. For all these years, I lived in fear and anxiety. I always thought it was my fault, so I accepted all of Julian's accusations. I even endured his ambiguous relationship with Serena, until the day I overheard his conversation with a friend. "You keep stringing Aria along without getting married. Aren't you afraid she'll run away one day?" "How could she? She feels guilty towards me. She won't run away." Julian swirled his wineglass, smiling smugly. "When are you going to tell her the truth about your mother's death? Can you really bear to see Aria live with this guilt forever?" "It pains me too, but—" Julian's voice lowered. "A scandal like my mother being killed by her lover can't get out. It would directly affect the company's interest. And something like this, how can I let an outsider like Aria know this?" In an instant, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. I couldn't believe my ears. If all of this was true, then haven't I been a joke all these years? He knew the truth, but chose to turn a blind eye. He watched me suffer from guilt with a clear conscience. And all my years of devotion meant nothing in his eyes. From the very beginning, I was just an outsider. The bitterness of the past resurfaced at this moment, and large tears fell. I looked at Julian and couldn't help but ask, "After all these years, don't you feel even a little bit guilty?" Julian's eyes flickered. His face turned even paler. "Aria, I can explain. It's not what you think." Seeing Julian still trying to argue, my hands trembled with anger. From that day, I completely broke down. I thought about laying everything bare, about confronting Julian, but in the end, reason prevailed. My mother didn't have much time left. Her last wish was to see me wear a wedding dress and have a family of my own. For this, I swallowed my grievances. I pretended to know nothing and continued to maintain this ridiculous love. But just before my mother died, Julian disappeared for 3 months to travel with Serena. Their travels took them from Hawaii to the other side of the world, and I could only frantically dial Julian's number, which was destined to go unanswered, by my mother's bedside. Until the very end, my mother was still waiting to see me in the wedding dress she had chosen for me. But she didn't know that the princess dress had already been put on another woman by the son-in-law she had chosen. In a church, they promised to spend the rest of their lives together, leaving my mother to die with regret. Thinking of this, my nose stung. Julian Croft, how are you going to explain yourself? Hiding the facts, twisting the truth, letting me be kept in the dark like a clown. How are you going to explain all of this?
My loud voice echoed in the office, striking Julian's heart heavily. His face was pale, and he shook his head repeatedly. I just didn't know how to face the fact that my mother was having an affair. I didn't mean to blame everything on you. Arya, believe me. I truly love you. Please don't leave me, okay? Seeing his earnest expression, I found it laughable. His sordid affairs with Serena were already common knowledge. How did Julian still have the face to promise to love me? Did he think betrayal was so insignificant that a few sweet words could easily coax me back? I couldn't help but sneer. You say you couldn't accept it, but in the end, didn't you cheat just like your mother? And you say you love me, so what is Serena? I never knew love could be divided between two people. Julian was instantly speechless. He subconsciously avoided my eyes. Just then, Serena squeezed out some tears. Then, as if feeling unwell, she clutched her heart and fell backward. "Serena, what's wrong?" Julian exclaimed. He once again ignored me at his side. In a few quick steps, he concernedly swept Serena into his arms, his heart aching for her. I watched indifferently, a scene so similar to the one at the hospital. My heart was completely calm. I saw Serena lying weakly in Julian's arms, but her eyes were bright and full of life. She gave me a defiant smile. Her mouth moved slightly. Although she didn't make a sound, I could still make out her words. "You lost. Julian cares about me the most." Faced with Serena's triumphant smile, I snorted dismissively. She was wrong. I never wanted to compete with her. A man who betrayed me didn't deserve my love. "Arya, can't you have a little compassion? Serena is already so weak. Why do you still have to sneer at her?" Julian heard my snort and questioned me, full of anger. I glanced at them with disgust and said coldly, "Why should I care about a third wheel?" Seeing Julian's face change, I continued to mock him. "And this is your sincerity? How cheap!" My words left Julian rooted to the spot, his face paler than ever. Even his pupils were trembling. He seemed unable to comprehend it. Why were my eyes, once full of love, now filled with disgust and loathing? Arya was deeply in love with Julian. That's why he had always acted recklessly, taking her love for granted. But now, that love seemed to be disappearing. Realizing this, Julian's expression turned panicked, his breathing ragged. "Arya, we've been together for 8 years. Can't you forgive me just this once?" I looked at the man before me, my stomach churning with disgust. I didn't understand where the boy I had once admired had gone. Or perhaps he had never existed. I turned my head away in disgust, not wanting to get entangled with him any longer. "Julian Croft, you really make me sick. You look at what you've done. What right do you have to say such things?" I turned and left, ignoring the shouts behind me. My steps grew lighter. Back home, I began to pack my bags, but my phone kept vibrating incessantly. A long string of messages instantly flooded the screen. The dense text made my head spin. I skimmed through them and let out a cold laugh. "Arya, I was wrong. Please let me explain again. Wait for me downstairs. We'll go home tonight and have a good talk, okay?" Even now, Julian still didn't seem to take my breakup seriously. He wishfully thought that as long as he explained things clearly, everything would be fine. But he kept repeating the same few sentences. He probably didn't know how to argue his way out of it either. After all, his cheating was an ironclad fact. Just as I was about to put my phone down, a photo from Serena came through. She was half lying on a hospital bed, with Julian looking anxious. Then Serena sent a smiling emoji. The provocation was unmistakable. I gripped my phone tightly. The next second, as expected, "Sorry, I have to take Serena to the hospital first. I won't be back tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." Even though I had let go, my heart still couldn't be calm.
How could I have been so blind to waste 8 years on a person like that? When I woke up in the morning, Julian was already back. He had bought breakfast early and was standing nervously at the dining table. I didn't have the habit of wasting food. I sat down and started eating. Seeing this, Julian asked cautiously, "Aria, did you have other plans yesterday? I didn't see you at the office." I blinked and said calmly, "I didn't go at all." Julian's face darkened, his tone tinged with grievance and anger. "But I waited for you for 2 whole hours." I put down my chopsticks, a slight smile on my lips. So he also knew that a long wait could make someone angry. But if he was so angry after just 2 hours, what about the night I had waited for him in the rain? In the middle of the night, I had gone to the bar in my pajamas in the pouring rain to deliver a document for him, but I didn't see him until dawn. When I called to question him, all I got was a perfunctory, "I forgot." Thinking of this, I said sarcastically, "Did I ever promise you I would? You were just talking to yourself the whole time." Julian was speechless, his face pale as he lowered his head. This was the first time I had ever been so cold to him.
After finishing my meal, I was about to head out when Julian once again offered to drive me. After I refused, he asked casually, as if it were an afterthought, "Are you going on a business trip? I saw you packing your bags." "I'm moving." Julian froze for a moment. Looking at the packed bags in the living room, his voice suddenly rose. "Moving? How come I don't know about this?" My lips tightened into a cold line. Unwilling to maintain this ridiculous calm any longer, I said sarcastically, "Julian, I thought I made it very clear. We've broken up." "So in what capacity are you questioning me now? Do I need to apply to you to move? Don't you think you're overstepping?" Seeing Julian's face turn ashen, I felt a great sense of satisfaction. Previously, Julian had lied to me about working late. When I saw him intimately embracing Serena, he had said the exact same thing to me. "Do I need to apply to you for what I do? You're overstepping." Julian seemed to realize this too. His breathing became ragged. "Aria, are you punishing me? So you do still love me. Let's not break up, okay? I won't hold what you did before against you, so can you not hold what happened with Serena against me?" I looked at the man in disbelief and laughed. What kind of cheap person did Julian think I was? That I had to be with him? "Julian, do you even hear yourself? You're the one who has been wronging me. When have I ever wronged you? I served you with all my heart for 8 years. Have you forgotten all of that?" Seeing Julian speechless, I said coldly, "If you're deaf, then I'll say it again. We've broken up. Please get as far away from me as possible and stop harassing me." Julian suppressed his emotions and said in a loud voice, "I haven't agreed to break up yet. We are still boyfriend and girlfriend." I sneered. "Do you think a breakup is a divorce? It requires both parties' consent?" Julian was silent for a moment, his voice hoarse. "Aria, can you really bear to see our love come to an end like this?" I took a deep breath and said calmly, "Julian, I don't love you anymore. To me now, you're just an insignificant stranger." As soon as these words were spoken, Julian's suppressed emotions instantly exploded. "Aria, how can you not love me? I was willing to spend all these years with you. What right do you have not to love me? You're lying, aren't you? You're just saying these things to make me angry, right?" With that, Julian stared intently into my eyes, as if seeking confirmation. But the longer he looked, the more panicked he became. Finally, he could no longer bear my calm gaze and fled in disarray. Seeing him leave, I shrugged lightly. I moved my packed bags to the door and waited for the moving company to arrive. After moving into my new place, my life flourished. Not only did I get rid of that despicable pair, Julian and Serena, but I also became the head of a branch office. To celebrate, I invited a few friends to a bar, but I never expected that when I got there, I wouldn't be waiting for them. Instead, I saw the senior from college who had once pursued me. I instantly understood my mischievous friend's intentions. I awkwardly apologized to my senior and was about to leave. Just as I turned around, I heard a voice. Arya, what are you doing here? And who is this man with you? Why is he all over you? I saw Serena, a smile in her eyes hiding behind a man with a grim face. Arya, who is he? I turned my head away, not wanting to deal with him. But I never thought this gesture would infuriate Julian even more. He grabbed my hand angrily and, despite my struggles, dragged me into a private room. The door to the room was wide open. Inside were all of Julian's good friends. Isn't that Arya? What's she doing here? As soon as they spoke, they could see something was wrong between Julian and me. Serena quickly came to my defense. Julian got a little upset when he saw Arya with another man so late at night. Instantly, the looks from those people changed. Contempt, disgust. Julian gripped my wrist even tighter, as if he wanted to eat me alive as he questioned me. Arya, I see why you changed your mind so quickly and insisted on breaking up with me. So you've fallen for another man. Tell me, how long have you been together? Did you get together during the time your mother was sick and I was gone? Before he could finish, slap. I slapped Julian right across the face. In an instant, the room fell silent. Julian was also stunned. The hand gripping my wrist loosened. I pulled back my already bruised wrist and slowly straightened my clothes. Julian Croft, just because you're dirty, don't assume everything you see is dirty too. We've broken up. So what if I found someone new? We have no relationship anymore. Please stop harassing me. At these words, Julian seemed to break down. Arya, who do you think you are? How dare you treat me like this? Do you think you can find someone better after leaving me? Impossible. Listening to his furious rant, I sneered. Julian Croft, you think a little too highly of yourself. You can't control me, and you've also underestimated Serena, who was right by your side. In front of everyone, I turned and walked up to Serena. I contemptuously lifted her chin and asked softly, Serena, do you dare to tell Julian what your father's name is and how he died? Seeing Serena panic, I couldn't help but laugh. I turned back and looked at Julian. Julian Croft, you think you can control everything, but in reality, you're the pitiful one. How does it feel to be with your own mother's lover's daughter? As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on Julian and Serena, their eyes filled with ridicule and schadenfreude. Julian collapsed on the sofa, completely devastated, muttering, impossible. The farce was over. After nodding an apology to everyone, I strode away. A week later, I heard news of Julian again from my best friend. His company was in trouble. When Serena saw that her cover was blown, she directly leaked the company's internal information to a rival company. Not only did this cause a project to fail, but the company's stock price also plummeted. Before the board could hold Julian accountable, Serena used the access he had given her to donate all the company's funds and then disappeared. As a result, a large number of employees resigned and Julian was in a complete mess. My best friend said it was karma. I just smiled and said nothing. In fact, I had known for a long time that Julian would face this disaster. When Serena first appeared, I had sensed something was wrong. She seemed to know Julian too well. It only took her a week to capture his heart. Her every word and action seemed to hit Julian's soft spot. It was too abnormal. It was as if it had been planned all along. So I privately hired a detective to investigate Serena. When I discovered the affair between Serena's father and Julian's mother, I understood everything. Serena had come for revenge. I desperately tried to stop Julian from getting involved with Serena. I tried every way to tell him that something was wrong with her, but unfortunately, Julian was too arrogant. He enjoyed his ambiguous relationship with Serena and thought I was just being jealous and unreasonable.
He didn't believe me at all. So what happened now wasn't karma at all. It was just him getting what he deserved. I had thought that after the incident at the bar, Julian and I would have no further connection. But I never expected that on a rainy day, he would show up at my door again. Aria! In the pouring rain, he looked at me miserably. I was wrong. I don't want to leave you. I'm sorry about what happened with Serena. I've already called the police. She won't bother us anymore. Can you please look at me again? Julian fell to his knees before me, begging me with extreme humility. Julian, it doesn't matter if Serena is here or not. She was just the catalyst. Even without her, we still would have broken up. Julian shook his head frantically, his eyes red. No, it's not like that. I know I'm a terrible person, but I just didn't know how to love you, so I made a lot of mistakes. Can you please give me one more chance? Faced with the man's heart-wrenching, helpless plea, I took a few steps back with a cold expression. Julian, you say you love me, so you can just break my wings and suppress me? Your love, I can't afford it. With that, I sneered. Ignoring the heart-wrenching wells behind me, I opened my umbrella and went home. A year later, I heard news of Julian again from my best friend. He was declared a vegetable after a drunk driving accident. The man who loved to disappear had finally disappeared from my life for good. And I, on the other hand, was steadily climbing the ranks at the branch office. And I had started dating a new boyfriend. We smoothly entered the hall of marriage. On my wedding day, I wore a brand new princess wedding dress and stood before my mother's portrait. Mom, your daughter is getting married. The sunlight shone on the black and white photo, reflecting my happy smile.